Hi there guys, welcome back, another week. Last week before the half term, we've done a full half term now, it's mad isn't it? So we've only got one lesson this week, much like last week. This one's a bit of a bigger topic and it sort of all moulds together, so I've had to put a few different topics into one lesson. So it's a bit of a chunkier one, so I've only given you one again. So you can either do it all in one, it'll probably take you around about an hour and a half I reckon, possibly quicker. If you've got yourself set up now with Teams and you're getting a little bit more in the flow. Or you could split it into two, maybe do the content and the quiz first and then do the exam questions separately. That's probably the best way to split it up, I would recommend. Completely up to you. Please watch the whole of this video because I do take time to explain stuff to you. And it should help things stick in your brain a bit more and maybe explain some of the PowerPoint that you might not be able to get on your own, but I have tried to make it simple enough to get on your own as well. You might not be able to see this, the text is quite small, but on the rest of the slides it should be alright. So today we're looking at a balanced diet and the role of nutrients, a really important topic in sport, in exercise, in physiotherapy. Pretty much anything you can think of to do with physical activity or exercise, diet is going to have something to do with it, or is going to be a way to be effective in whatever career or role it might be. So we're going to look at a balanced diet, what macronutrients do, don't worry if you don't know what they are yet, what the energy of balance equation is, and then what carbo-loading and timing of protein intake is as well. So sort of 4 mini topics that all come together really well. So that's why it's a bit of a bigger chunk of a lesson. So today's lesson is a little bit different. I generally don't like to do sort of note-taking lessons. I don't necessarily believe in them in school, but certainly in this situation, actually, I think it could be a really effective way of us learning. So I've given you some instructions on the PowerPoint. I'm not going to read through them yet. Basically, it's just saying that that you're going to use revision-taking skills, note-taking skills, to create some maybe a resource pack for you that you can keep hold of and use for your progress test, so we don't waste this time. I don't want you to just copy. It's pointless. Don't remember it. It's pointless. Use things like mind maps, revision cards, maybe make yourself little questions that you can get someone at home to test you with. There's loads of different ways you can do that and make use of it. Okay, so really try and think about it and don't just sit there and take notes. At the very least, turn the little paragraphs of text that I'm going to give you into bullet points that you can remember and put on revision cards. Okay, and then you're going to use them to answer the quiz and answer the exam questions. Just whilst we're on that, I expect everyone to do the quiz. It'll take you 10 minutes tops. It's just 20 questions, 21 mark multiple choice questions. You know my rule, my class. In the exam, by the time we get to year 11, exam questions, multiple choice is going to be 10 out of 10. So this is 20, so I'm expecting at least 15 hopefully. On the exam questions, I'm getting the impression, I can see a load of people opening the PowerPoint, but I'm getting very little assignments handed into me. As long as you're doing that in your book at home, that's absolutely fine. But the exam questions are a really big, important part of the course, and we need to be practicing them, so don't miss them out. So if you are deciding to do it in your book at home, please just do me a favour. On the assignment that I've given you, at the start, just I've put a little sentence saying I'm doing this at home. Just write yes and then submit it to me so I know at least that you're doing it, and then actually do it at home, please, yeah? I'd love to see your answers though, if possible, if you feel comfortable enough to type it in, if you're lucky enough to be able to have a computer to do that. I'd love to sort of see the responses and how the lesson's getting on, and if you're understanding it, so then I know to make the lessons harder or easier, or do them in a different way, so it's really useful for me. So please do that. Okay, yeah, right, let's move on. Okay, so, bear with me a second. No, being dead slow. Alright, so there's two types of nutrients. Sorry, two sections of nutrients, should I say, categories. You've got your macronutrients and your micronutrients. So once you've sort of broken down what they mean, they're relatively easy to remember which way round they are. So macro, the word macro originates from things being of large scale to being big, yeah? So they're the things that we need a lot of. So we need a lot of carbohydrates, quite a lot of fats and quite a lot of protein. So they're the things that you will be able to sort of almost physically see as well. You will be able to physically see them on your plate as well. Micronutrients of micro, you might have worked out, means small, really small. So microscope looks at really small things. Microchip is a really small sort of device that's being used for computers. You'd be able to think of loads of others as well. And these are the things that we need smaller amounts of. And I also remember it as these are the small things that you can't necessarily sort of see as well. So that's how we sort of differentiate between them. And then I've put water here as well. For me, water doesn't fit into either of them, because you could argue that water we need a lot of, so it's going to be a macronutrient because we need at least 2 litres a day. But you could also argue that it could be on this side as well, because it's more to do with hydration. So it doesn't really fit in either for me, so I just leave it on its own there. We're not actually going to talk about water or micronutrients today. We're going to do that in another lesson after half term. We're going to talk about these three today and how they link to performance. Alright, so we need to know about a balanced diet quite briefly. We don't need to go into it too much, but we need to know it to be able to explain it and describe it. So this setup here is for a regular person. So we're not really talking about an athlete yet. We're not talking about different heights, different sexes, different ages. This is just for a regular person. So that's why it's not exactly 25%, it's 20 to 25. You need to sort of know these percentages. Some studies might argue they're different, so it might argue that it's 50 to 60%, but we sort of go off these ones. So the regular person will need half of the stuff they eat, just over half, so 55 or 60% of the things that they eat during the day need to be carbohydrates. Okay, you've got your simple and your complex carbohydrates, starches that make up types of carbohydrates. We don't need to know that on the exam, but it's worth mentioning just for future knowledge in case you decide to go into diet or sport in college. Then between 20 and 25% of our diet needs to be fats. People get really scared of the word fats because they think it's a negative thing. Fats in general are not a negative thing, they're essential for our diet. It's different types of fats that people get scared of and say you should not be eating these. So there's 4 different types of fats. Again, you don't need to know these, but I want to tell you this so that you have that knowledge for when you go sort of later into college. So you've got saturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, monounsaturated fat, and trans fats. Trans fats they're the ones that people are saying you should not be eating these. They're the ones that you get from your processed foods. There's a range of good fats in saturated, polyunsaturated and monounsaturated. It depends on where it comes from. Generally in the monounsaturated and the polyunsaturated ones are the ones where you find the healthier fats and the ones that are the good fats. Okay, so some of those examples of the good fats are in here. So you've got your eggs, your salmon, olives, nuts, avocado, olive oil. Obviously you still have to take these in moderation. You can't just go scranning them because they're healthy. You've got to take it in moderation, but they're the good ones that really will help you get your omega-3, for example, as well from fish. And these will also help store different vitamins, because different vitamins get stored in fat, so that's why it's important as well. Lastly, we have protein, which you need 15 to 20% of. We'll go through why we need that in a second. But you get that from a range of things. People just think protein or meat. It's not. Those are those vegetarians of you and vegans will know you can get protein from loads of places. In fact, there's a massive argument for a plant-based diet for athletes. There's a documentary on Netflix about it. It's a little bit biased, to be honest, but it's still an interesting watch. So you can get protein from your lentils, chickpeas, different pulses, obviously your meats and your fish, avocado, and your dairy products as well. So you can get them from a range of places. So if you haven't already, just jot down the different types of food that way you can get these carbohydrates, fats and proteins from. Create a really quick resource, maybe a little revision card would be great, and then meet me on the next slide. Okay, I'm not going to spend too long going through these because I've pretty much explained it on the last slide. All your task is here is use these words here to fill the gaps, and then meet me on the next slide. I'm not going to spend time going through them because I do want to keep the video short. So it should be quite self-explanatory. I've made this one relatively simple. So use it to create notes. I would recommend taking these working it out, taking these paragraphs and 3 bullet points for each section. The only thing I've not talked about is proteins. These are used to help repair muscle fibre that's been torn, and it's really essential for rest and recovery after exercise. Okay. To answer these, when I was talking on the last slide, I would have pretty much given you the information to answer it. Just out of interest, if you use the app called MyFitnessPal, that's what I've been using at the moment to sort of track what I've been eating. If you're watching this video during lockdown, when you're around the fridge all day, I just need to chill a little bit instead of opening the fridge, seeing what's in there just out of sheer boredom. So I've tried to use this to sort of track what I'm eating, and also out of interest really, knowing that this topic was coming up. So what I want you to have, just you don't even have to write this down or anything, just have a quick look at the screenshot of my day 2 days ago. I'm not going to say whether or not it was good yet. Have a look, see what you think. Was it a good day? Was it a bad day? Was it a balanced diet? Did I have the right amount of macronutrients there? And then just have a little think. Pause it and I'll explain in a second. Right, so for me that's not a balanced diet. I actually did this at the end of the day before it was too late, after all the food had gone in my body. There's an argument it's a little bit balanced, but generally it's not very balanced. The main reason why is because my carbohydrates are only making up 42% of the stuff I've eaten that day. So that's not enough to help me give me energy to get around the day. But at the same time, my fat content is pretty high. Now that's going to give me the energy, but if I don't use that pretty quickly, that's going to get stored as fat in my body, and there'll be excess calories, which can be a problem, not always, and that we'll talk about in maybe a few slides time. If you look at my protein though, pretty much spot on. I'm getting a fair bit of protein in there, so I want to keep that up to help my muscles repair after exercise. I've been doing quite a lot of exercise recently, so that's good, but because I've been doing a lot of exercise recently, that should be quite a bit higher as well, so maybe even over 60%, and increase the amount of carbohydrates that I have eaten. So that's what I thought of it. It's a really interesting app. I'd give it a go, not to track your diet or anything, you're far too young to be thinking about anything like that, but just to really get an interest of sort of what the stuff how much stuff you're eating. It also tells you about your vitamins and minerals, etc. that you've been eating. Those of you that do quite intense sport, it's actually really good to say, actually, am I eating enough carbohydrates after an intense, well, when you get back swimming, for example. I know a lot of you do exercise every day. If you're not getting the carbohydrates in, that's why you'll be feeling really tired the next morning, because you've not eaten enough, you've not got enough glucose or glycogen in your body to do what you do day to day. So it's quite interesting. I'm setting you a challenge now. Download the app and just track your food intake for the week. It should be really interesting. It's dead easy to use and it's completely free. You don't need to sign up for anything. So you might need to put an email in, sorry, but you don't need to pay for anything. Really interesting. I'd give it a go, and it will definitely help you with this topic. Right, okay. So next sort of mini topic is the energy balance equation. It sounds complicated. It's not. It's pretty simple. There's a lot of myths that go around in the diet world. There's a lot of people saying, oh, this is the best diet, this is the best diet, blah, 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 blah. That diet, having a balanced diet, is quite simple. And just on that note, before I move on, the word diet, sometimes people think of diet, oh, you're doing diet to lose weight. Diet, we're not talking about that. What we're saying is, diet is basically the stuff that you eat. It's simple. Not necessarily to gain weight, lose weight, maintain a weight, not even that, just what you eat, what your diet is, okay? Some people use it to lose weight, some people use a diet to gain weight, some people just keep an eye on it just to maintain the weight, or to make sure that they're using the right amount of calories for exercise, okay? So just taking that point, it's pretty simple, and everyone has these, all these experts have, use this type of, don't eat all this, don't eat fats here, and because it'll do whatever, and it's a lot of it's a load of rubbish. Some of it's good, some of it's rubbish. The simple way is, the calories that you eat, if you want to maintain your weight, should be exactly the same as the calories that you use during the day. Do that. Same weight, okay? If you want to gain weight, if you need to put on weight for whatever reason, okay, the energy consumed, so the food that you eat during the day or week, should be it should be more than the energy that you use during the day. If you do that, you'll have excess calories left in your body. It'll help you put on weight. And then the opposite, if you want to lose weight, so you need to consume less calories than you burn during the day, that you expend. Okay, simple. That's for some of you that diagram will work really well. For me, I see it more in an equation for the mathematicians that of you. Energy consumed minus the energy expended, so the energy eaten minus the energy burned equals weight gain or weight loss. I'll show you what I mean. So, if you eat 2,500 kilocalories in a day, and then you minus the energy you've burnt in a day, so this could be just walking around, if you've got a sedentary lifestyle, sitting on a couch or behind a desk, or maybe walking from lesson to lesson, up some stairs, whatever. So let's say that was 2,000 kilocalories, you have 500 kilocalories left over in the day. Those 500 kilocalories will be stored on your body as fat, which means that you've gained weight. Pretty simple, right? Let's do it the other way. Let's say you only consume 2,000 kilocalories in the day and burnt 2,500 kilocalories just out and about your business. That would leave you with minus 500 kilocalories, which means that your body has had to use 500 kilocalories, which means you've lost 500 kilocalories, which means you've lost weight. It's literally as simple as that. Don't overcomplicate it. We're going to just tweak it ever so slightly for athletes in a second, but this is how it works generally for people. I'm going to change the equations ever so slightly in a second. Again, the MyFitnessPal app does this equation for you. I'm using it at the moment, so have a look. Alright, so if we add in the calories we expend during exercise to, it just shows that we need to really think about sort of our diet a little bit more if we're avid sports people or athletes. So I've put the same formula here, but you'll notice I've now added in, oh, didn't change that, that's not changed. So this is supposed to be energy consumed minus the energy expended during the day. So that's called the basal rate. You don't need to know that, but it's useful to know for college and uni. Plus the energy that you've done during exercise. That's not changed for some reason. So that's the energy burnt during exercise, okay? And then it still equals weight gain and weight loss. So 2,500 kilocalories during the day minus, so the 2,200 kilocalories that you do just going about your business, around your usual day, walking to work, school, going upstairs, downstairs, doing whatever, plus say the 800 calories you've done when you've been playing netball, football, or whatever, and then that would equal minus 500 kilocalories. Okay. Why we need to be careful is because if we're not careful, we will not have enough carbohydrates, enough energy in our body to recover and go about the rest of our day or the next day. And we actually need energy to repair muscles, and also we need protein. We need more protein to repair those muscles, the muscle fibers that have been torn during exercise. So when the muscle fibers tear, we use protein to repair them back together, bigger and stronger. So that's why our muscles get bigger and stronger or better at enduring exercise. So we really need to be careful about the amount of calories we're taking in, especially when we're doing large, intense exercise sessions. Okay, so just something to think about. And that links into what we're doing next. Please remember that's supposed to say energy used during exercise. I'm going to change that in a second. Sorry guys, computer's being slow. Okay, is that the right slide? Yeah. No, it's not. Right, okay. Thought I'd missed a slide out. So, how does this link to sports people and their performance? Obviously, you won't be able to read this here. That's on your PowerPoint. I'll really briefly take you through each one, but you've got the majority of information there. What I want you to do is use your revision notes, maybe create some flashcards for each of these. For carbohydrate loading, known as carbo-loading, it's a bit easy to say, and timing of protein intake, so when do you intake protein. So the first one, carbo-loading, the basics is that when you eat carbohydrates, it gets stored as glycogen in your muscles, around your body, and it's released by your liver as well. And that is stored there, ready for you to use during exercise, to turn into glucose, to create energy with oxygen, or not with oxygen, depending if it's aerobic or anaerobic, to create energy. Okay? What athletes do, endurance athletes, so ones that are going for a long amount of time, before a big event, they usually around about the week or closer to the event, they will start eating more carbohydrates to increase their glycogen stores in the muscles. So they'll theoretically have more energy ready to exercise. What they'll also do to help that is they will decrease the amount of exercise that they're doing, or either the frequency of exercise that they're doing, or the length of time that they do it for. They'll still do it quite intense, but by decreasing the frequency and the length of the sessions, they will burn less calories, so therefore they'll still have more glycogen left over in the muscles to use in the big event. Okay, so they do those two things. So when they're in the event, they've got more energy to call upon in the muscles, and that should help them last for longer in the event. I've tried it myself, it definitely does work. You've got to get it right though, you can't go too hard. I once set a massive Nando's the night before a triathlon, thinking, yeah, clever, loads of protein, loads of carbs. Far too many, there was a bit too much fat in there as well. The whole of the triathlon, my body hadn't digested it properly. I kept burping all the time. You've got to be clever with it. You've got to eat the right carbohydrates as well. But we won't go into that yet. So that's one thing, so make some notes on that. And then timing of protein intake is really important. The basics of it is that everyone should be eating a certain amount of protein in their diet. People who are long distance athletes should still be definitely taking in extra protein. Explosive athletes, power athletes, need to be taking a lot of protein in because they're going to be using their muscles and tearing muscle fibers a lot in their weight training, in their event. So then almost, say within half an hour after their event, as soon as possible, they need to be taking in protein to start repairing those muscles and aid recovery. If you leave it too long, it'll take longer to recover, and it'll take longer for your muscle fibers to repair. So you really need to make sure you're getting that protein in there. So you'd imagine this guy is a power athlete or a weightlifter, or even just someone who likes going to the gym a lot. Need to get the protein in real fast. But please don't forget other athletes will need to do that too, just not quite as much as these guys. Okay, like shot putters, sprinters, etc. Okay, so your exam zone, it's been set as an assignment on Microsoft Teams. I'd really prefer it if you could answer it on there so I could see your answers. If you insist on doing it in your book, I'm not going to argue with you. Just please go on the assignment and say, I'm doing it in my book, and then submit it. Okay, then actually do it. So, I've taken an exam question, just changed it around a little bit. So the figure below shows me, just after the swim session of a triathlon. Explain how carbo-loading could improve Mr. Gosling's performance in this long distance event. So to give you an idea, this event was a 2,000 metre swim, a 90 kilometre bike ride and a half marathon. So you can imagine that's a long distance event. This wasn't the one where I got my carbo loading wrong, by the way. I got this one right. So basically, what did I do to improve my performance in this event? Yeah. So this is from the mark scheme. So I'm going to give you a clue this time. So it's 1 AO1, 2 AO2s, 1 AO3. Yeah. So 1 mark for describing what carbohydrate loading is, 2 marks for how they would use it how I would use it to apply it to a triathlon. Obviously it says marathon runner there. It means triathlon athlete. Triathlete, and then 1 mark for answering the question. So AO3, 1 mark, how would it improve my performance? Okay. Apart from, I'm not on the exam, this is an exam question, I've just changed it around a little. Answer it on Microsoft Teams, pause it, meet me on the next slide. Okay, just going to check my camera's still recording. It is. So, can I see? Yep. All right. So, you've got your mark scheme here. I'm not sure if you can see it on the video, but obviously use the PowerPoint alongside this. So, really simple. This is the way it would be answered. Okay, so by eating a high carbohydrate diet before the race, that word high is really important, or increased amount of carbohydrates in the week before, you've got to have said that, get a mark. And by tapering or reducing training levels, that word tapering, don't think I mentioned before, it is on the PowerPoint, reducing the amount of training levels in the days leading up to the competition, there's your second mark. There's an argument that's an AO1, but it does sort of explain how you would use carbohydrate loading, so that's why they called it AO2. The runner maximises their glycogen stores in their muscles prior to the event. I'm sorry guys, if you've written glucose there, you're not going to get the mark. It's got to be glycogen because that's the right answer. So be really careful about that you get that right. If you get it wrong now, you won't get it wrong again. Just make sure you remember. So that's your AO1, 2 AO2s, this is your AO3. Therefore, that connective word there really helps you. The marathon runner can maintain a pace for longer during their overall triathlon time. Okay. Or you could have written something there like they can maintain a higher intensity of activity or of cycling or swimming or running, whatever. Okay. If there's a slight different change in wording, apart from high or glycogen, then you can probably work out if you deserve the mark or not. What I've done is, because this was an official question on an exam last year, I've put what the examiner said in. I think it's really important. I'm not going to stand here because the video's getting a bit long now, but basically he was saying that this was a challenging question. I personally thought it was a bit of an easier one, but apparently people across the country, students across the country in year 11, were only getting 1 or 2 marks for it. So if you've got 1 or 2 marks, and if you've got 1 mark and think, I'm a bit disappointed with that, don't be. You're getting the same as a lot of year 11s were last year, so you should be proud of yourself. If you get anything above 2 marks, well done you. You're in year 9, you're absolutely smashing it. Okay? So take that as a real positive. Next question. It's worth reading that, by the way. Okay. This one, explain the energy balance equation for maintaining a healthy weight. 3 marks. So this is why you can't always rely on a pattern for explain questions, because this time it asks for 2 AO1s and 1 AO3. It really frustrates me. I've sat for hours looking at mark schemes and specs and examiners' reports trying to work out a pattern to help you out. There isn't one yet. Maybe if I keep an eye out for it, one will appear over the next few exams, and I'll figure it out before yours in year 11. But for the time being, you've really got to delve into the question and really think about what it's asking of you, which is, I suppose, why they do it, because it has to be difficult. So it wants 2 marks for describing the energy equation. So you could probably do that just by talking through the equation, but don't write the equation out. It wants you to explain it. And so you get 2 marks for describing what it is. So 2 easier marks really, and then 1 mark for the impact on maintaining a healthy weight. So this is important, maintaining a healthy weight. Is it talking about losing weight? Is it talking about gaining weight? Or is it talking about keeping your weight the same? Just have a think. Okay. Answer it on Microsoft Teams. Meet me on the next slide. All right, mark scheme, real simple. The amount of energy in or consumed or eaten you can have should be the same as, should equal the amount of energy used during the day, used during exercise, I suppose you could accept as well. 1 mark. So 2 easier marks for description there. Here's your AO3. Otherwise, weight will be gained or lost, or become overweight or underweight. You could, if you'd written about maintaining the same weight as well, you could have that as long as you'd said before if your energy balance is the same. So there you have it. That was probably a bit of an easier question than the last one, but it was still a year 11 question. So if you've got at least 1 mark, 2 marks on there, well done. 3 marks. That's the type of question where I'm going to be going to you in year 11. I want 3 out of 3 on that. Okay, but you're only in year 9, so I'm not going to say that to you yet. So if you've got 3 out of 3, brilliant. If not, don't worry, we'll work on it. And there was an examiner's report there as well. Most candidates gain sort of at least 2 marks. Okay, but if you didn't, like I said, don't worry, you're still in year 9. And I'm not even there, you're not even in the class with me. Okay. Really important point. Those who did not gain any marks, the usual mistake was not reading the question carefully. How many times have I said that? These examiner reports, you'll see more of them in year 10 and year 11. I find them quite interesting. You might not do, but I think it really gives us a good insight, especially when you're revising. My year 11s last year found it really useful. So that is that. There's your lesson. I'm sorry it took a little bit of time to explain it. We've just gone over half an hour, but like I said, it's only 1 lesson this week, so it's like split it in 2. It's 2 15-minute videos. Thanks for listening, guys. Keep up the good work, and I will see you guys after half term.